What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, we need to talk about Oklahoma and Texas formally requesting membership into the SEC. And we've had a lot of great reporting around this, right? First, we get the four-letter network dropping that the SEC is going to meet on Thursday, where they are expected to discuss offering an invitation to Oklahoma and Texas. For this to happen, 11 of the 14 presidents and chancellors inside the SEC already would have to vote affirmatively to send that invitation, and Greg Sankey would go through with that. We know that Texas A&M is kind of kicking and screaming on all of this because Ross Bjork has also said, we want to be the only Texas program in the SEC. May or may not get his wish, but we also have seen the letter that was sent to Greg Sankey on behalf of Oklahoma and Texas. Shout out to the two-letter network, SI, for getting that letter. And in it, it's what you would expect, right? Both Harris and Hartzell mutually signed a very short letter that said, hey, we think that it would be good for OU and Texas to join the SEC, and we think that the SEC would benefit from OU and Texas joining the conference, and they're asking to be admitted by July 1, 2025. Why is that date important? Because their rights with the Big 12, or their membership in the Big 12, as we should say, is up formally on June 30th, 2025, so they don't want to miss a day here. But we know that things can change. And I want to stress this part because there are a number of you that want to know why I still am not all in on Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. Because there's still more steps that have to be done here. Those of you who have bought a house, you understand what this is going like, okay? Especially in this market. And that's the kind of market that Oklahoma and Texas are operating in. It's not just that you show up to somebody's house where they got a for sale sign and say, hey, we got the cash. Can we buy the house? Usually, you can get close to something like that, but you have to go through a credit check. You have to go through a lender. And me, not to make this entirely about me, I've been through this before, okay? I also went through this as a single black man. So my experience, a little bit different, all right? It's harrowing. There's a lot that has to go into it. Both sides have to feel good about the transaction, and then there's some haggling that usually has to go on in between. We won't see what that haggling is between OU and Texas and SEC before such a deal gets struck, if a deal gets struck. But for y'all to think this is cut and dry, right? Like somehow you're going to show up and get an AMC Stubs card because you applied. You're wrong about that. There's so much that has to go on here. That's why I'm just like, I want to wait and see. And as I've said before, it's a marriage. And while 80% of divorcees end up getting remarried inside of 4 years, I think it behooves both Oklahoma and Texas, who are quite handsome, to go and, take a few dates, see what else is out there, instead of just marrying the richest, most powerful person in the room. Usually, when you do such a thing, that person thinks that they're more talented and more powerful and richer than you, and they will treat you as such. And then we talk about the play on the field. There's not an easy path for Oklahoma or Texas to get to the college football playoff, right? Because going to a 16-team league increases your chances of not making it to even the conference championship game. And for Okies, who have been living such a great life with 6 straight conference championships and expected to win a 7th, this is going to be a little bit of a jawbreaker, right? You're going to have to either leave it in your jaw for a while or risk losing a tooth. And I don't know that's what Oklahoma fans want to do. And I was just talking with a friend of mine last night. Oklahoma's been a part of a conference with a big in front of it since 1919. First the 8, now the 12. And for them to join the SEC also kind of feels wrong. Because when Bob would go beat up on an SEC team, Okies felt some kind of way about it, right? And now it feels very Kevin Durant going to the Warriors. Now, going to the Warriors, he won a title. Maybe that's what it is for Oklahoma, but that's also why I think this year is so important for Oklahoma. Win the national championship this year, and a lot of this goes away because you'd be joining that conference, if you were allowed to join that conference, as a national champ who had done it somewhere else, as opposed to having to go into the SEC and be one of those 8 teams that have won a national championship the last 15 years. Matter of fact, one of the 8 national champions in the last 15 years, because it's been Alabama, Auburn, Florida, LSU. That's about it. Georgia. what are you doing? You need to get on your high horse here and do something. But I continue to follow this story, mostly because y'all want me to keep following this story, and I keep trying to lay out my thinking for you on this to say it's way more complicated than you think. I ended up in my house. Did I lose hair over it? Because many of y'all want to talk about my hairline? Yeah, I did. Is it something that I feel worthwhile? Absolutely. And if you're OU in Texas, perhaps this is what you do. I'm just not convinced that A, you're going to like it, and B, that it's just going to happen. All right, that is it for me. Deuces.